Hey everyone, on today's episode of Hubris Syndrome, we're talking about Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to the show. We are uncomfortably close to the release of Red Dead Redemption. I'm sweating. I'm getting anxious. I'm getting nervous. So, naturally, I'm obsessed with lore, so I went back to play Red Dead Redemption 1 in anticipation of 2. And something caught my eye. The newspaper articles and the things that they can tell us about the world of Red Dead Redemption. So we're going to be getting into some of these newspaper articles and theorizing about the events of Red Dead Redemption 2. So if you're adverse to any kind of spoilers whatsoever, you have been warned. Red Dead Redemption 1 spoilers, and technically, since this is in Red Dead 1, they're not really spoilers about 2, but we're going to learn some things. So again, final spoiler warning. Let's go. First up, very, very, very important newspaper article. It's actually in the first newspaper you can get your hands on, as follows. Williamson Gang Reign of Terror. In events that hark back to our state's not so distant and none too glorious past, a gang of thieves and killers is running amok across the western counties. Although New Austin has never been a place for the faint of heart, nor a place that encourages delicacy, law enforcement agencies are particularly worried about this new gang. Not since Dutch Vanderlin's crew was operating up in West Elizabeth has a criminal group caused so much concentration, nor gained so much publicity. Although cattle rustling and robberies are unfortunately still common throughout our region, the spat of killings, fires, and burnings caused by Bill Williamson and his gang have shocked even the hardest and most robust of local residents. Williamson, a career criminal and reprobate with a record running back to reform school, is himself, now this line's very important, is himself believed to have once run in Vanderlin's gang. Dutch Vanderlin himself has not been seen nor heard from in several years, and despite claims of sightings, is thought to have perished in a fire following a bungled robbery in 1906. With railway companies and other business interests pushing local and federal government bodies to aid economic development and investment by reducing crime, it is clear that action will be taken against this latest gang attempting to live the American dream outside of the law. Okay, a lot to unpack in this article. The one thing that really stands out to me is Williamson, a career criminal and reprobate with a record running back to reform school, is himself believed to have once run in Vanderlin's gang. That tells me that people didn't know exactly who was in this gang. It's not common knowledge. So we can theorize that maybe Arthur Morgan or maybe other members of the gang got out in time, got off the grid, fled to another country or another state, and maybe are still alive in the current timeline. We don't know. But we do know that to the public's knowledge, the common knowledge, was that a lot of these gang members were unaccounted for. There's a lot of missing information. Another huge line here. Dutch Vanderlin himself has not been seen or heard from in several years, and despite claims of sightings, is thought to have perished in a fire following a bungled robbery in 1906. Now, this is very important. There's a stranger side mission in Red Dead Redemption 1. I believe it's called I Know You. And it's the three-part stranger side mission with the man with the top hat who, there's a lot of theories about who he is. Is he, is John Marston projecting who he is? Is it God? Is it Satan? Is it an angel or a demon? No one knows for sure. But what we do know is that he calls John out about a robbery in none other than 1906. So upon first encountering the strange man, welcome, John Marston. Do I know you? I hope so. I seem to know you. I'm pretty good at remembering faces. Are you? Do you remember Heidi McCourt's face? Who? She was a girl Dutch Vanderlin shot in the head on that raid on the ferry a few years back. Same one you got shot on. Pretty girl until her eye was hanging out by a thread of tendon and her brain was plastered over a wall. Now, again, we know that John Marston gets shot and left for dead. He says that to Landon Ricketts. He says that to Javier Escuela, that he gets left for dead by the gang, and then he leaves the gang. And this here, with the strange man saying that Dutch shot a girl in the head on a raid, same one you got shot on, that leads me to believe that that is the bungled robbery in 1906. We know that Dutch descends into madness. You know, John calls him insane on numerous occasions, that he goes insane, clearly kills, an innocent woman, Heidi McCourt. I think this is going to be the event that really wakes John up and shocks John Marston into, like, what are we even doing? So all of that inferred from that one article, Williamson Gang, Reign of Terror. 10 out of 10. Next is kind of a follow-up to that later down the line. The headline is Dutch Vanderlin spotted. We don't learn too much from this, but I thought I would mention it anyway. Famed outlaw Dutch Vanderlin, a man long believed dead, has been spotted alive and unfortunately well in our region. Mr. Vanderlin, who ran a gang of outlaws and robbers for many years, has now resurfaced and it seems has not given his life over to the Lord. Mr. Vanderlin, wanted for questioning over several murders and robberies back in the early years of the century, is now being linked to a recent assault on a farm just north of Blackwater in which 2 men were killed. So that's mostly pertaining to Red Dead 1. But it is interesting to note that it says murders and robberies in the early years of the century. We know Red Dead 2 is 1899, all the way up until this bungled robbery in 1906. Next up, one of my favorite characters in Red Dead Redemption, Landon Ricketts, rumored alive. Perhaps the legend of the Old West do live on into this more modern century. Reports from Mexico suggest that possibly the last of the great gunman Landon Ricketts may be alive and well just south of the border. Here's where things get interesting. Mr. Ricketts, who survived the Blackwater Massacre of 1899, very important. When does Red Dead 2 take place? 1899. Now, before we move further, I'm sure a lot of you are saying, oh, well, you may know more about Red Dead Redemption 2 than me because I have only watched the teaser and then that first, official trailer. So the teaser and the trailer, a media blackout from here on out. So if they've revealed anything past that, I don't know. I'm just using the knowledge from Red Dead 1 to think about Red Dead 2, not taking any trailers into account or anything like that. Spoilers. Mr. Ricketts, who survived the Blackwater Massacre of 1899 and who shot and killed both of the Butcher brothers in 1896, a flashback perhaps, amongst many other rumored and verified killings, was long believed dead after a late-night gunfight in Eastern California in 1902. Now it seems the last of the men who lived by the speed of their reflexes may still be among us. It is unclear whether he will join a Wild West show. So I love this. It mentions the Blackwater Massacre of 1899. I don't think we're going to get up to Eastern California in 1902. I don't know. I have no clue. That would be crazy. Who knows how huge this game is, Red Dead 2? Is it going to span decades? Are we going to get a Rockstar Bully chapter where we play as like Arthur or John Marston as a kid in a boarding school? I don't know, but I love theorizing about it. I love thinking about it. It's also interesting to note that Landon Ricketts is, one of the great gunmen of the West. So it'll be interesting to see how his legend is handled in Red Dead 2. And a follow-up to that, when you play as Jack Marston in 1914, you can buy one last newspaper. So, Landon Ricketts rumored alive in 1911. We flash forward to 1914 now. Another piece of the Old West died last week with news that legendary gunman Landon Ricketts passed away quietly in his sleep. Mr. Ricketts, famous for his involvement in the Blackwater Massacre of 1899, again hinting on that, and the deaths of the Butcher Brothers in 1896, again with that, returned to the U.S. 3 years ago after living for many years in Mexico. He is rumored to have been writing an autobiography at the time of his death, but the book was never made available for publishing. Amongst the legendary shootists of the West, Mr. Ricketts was considered to be one of the fastest draws, although he was also dogged by rumors that one of his most famous victories, when he shot and killed Johnny West, was won by shooting his opponent in the back. So will we address that long-standing rumor? Wouldn't that be interesting if we saw, the shootout with Johnny West? So when we're playing Red Dead 2, allies, be on the lookout for Johnny West. Definitely a notable name. All right, and the last piece of information, the last one. Again, this is from the final newspaper that you can pick up as Jack Marston in 1914. Edgar Ross retires after a lifetime of government service. Edgar Ross. Agent Edgar Ross, a government official who spent the past 7 years stationed in Blackwater, so that goes back to 1907, who spent the past 7 years stationed in Blackwater with federal That's actually interesting. I just thought of that now. If he's there in 1907, the Blackwater Massacre is 1899, and then but the bungled robbery is 1906, the Heidi McCourt thing. So this huge bungled robbery causes enough chaos for then Agent Ross to come down and set up shop. So that was a huge event. That's interesting. Who spent about 7 years stationed in Blackwater with federal jurisdiction over all of West Elizabeth, has retired. Among many other achievements, Mr. Ross is credited with eradicating native unrest in the region and eliminating some of the West's most wanted and dangerous criminals, including Bill Williamson, Dutch Vanderlin, Javier Escuela, and John Marston, collectively known as Dutch Vanderlin's Gang. He was honored with medals for outstanding service to his country, distinguished career, and exceptional valor in the field of duty. Mr. Ross and his loving wife Emily have moved out to a cabin by Lake Don Julio in Cola Springs, New Austin, to enjoy their twilight years together. And we all know what happens to Edgar Ross down by the river. So, it's time to theorize about Red Dead Redemption 2.